What happens when music becomes a backdrop for chaos? Join us as we discover 5 stories of disturbing deaths at concerts that show how moments meant for joy and music can quickly shift to heartbreak, forever changing the lives of those present. It was May 22, 2017, and thousands of people were attending Ariana Grande's concert in Manchester. Among them was Safi Rose Roussos, an 8-year-old girl from Leyland, Lancashire. When Safi received tickets to Ariana Grande's concert as a Christmas gift, she was ecstatic. But what was supposed to be one of the best nights of the concert-goers' lives quickly turned into an unspeakable nightmare that shocked the world. In 2017, Safi Rose Roussos was 8 years old and a huge Ariana Grande fan. The young girl dreamed of following in her idol's footsteps. She wanted to become a singer and a dancer and bring joy to others. Safi was a sweet and shy girl whose infectious smile could light up any room. On that day, Safi, her mother Lisa, and her older sister Ashley Bromwich all entered the Manchester Arena, ready for a night of pure joy. The concert was part of Ariana Grande's Dangerous Woman World Tour. More than 14,000 people were in attendance. Many of them were young people and families who had come to enjoy the music. The concert began at about 7:35 p.m. 2 openers warmed up the crowd before the main act. Grande took the stage at 9 p.m., performing her beloved hit songs until around 10:30 p.m. when the concert ended. What followed was horrifying. The crowd was slowly making its way toward the exit. Those who had started leaving before the concert ended were already inside the foyer known as the City Room and near the exit. Safi Rose Roussos, her mother Lisa, and her older sister Ashley were in the City Room. Safi was ecstatic and couldn't wait to see her father and brother, who were waiting to pick them up outside. It was in the City Room, the main exit of the arena, that at exactly 10:31 p.m., a bomber named Salman Abedi detonated an improvised explosive device, a bomb weighing in excess of 30 kilograms. The bomb was packed with nuts and bolts to maximize harm and hurt as many people as possible. In a flash, the lives of thousands were changed. Chaos erupted. The blast sent shockwaves through the arena, shattering glass and causing panic as concert-goers and their families scrambled for safety. Safi was just 5 meters away from the bomber when the explosion occurred. When the bomb detonated, the 8-year-old was thrown to the ground and became separated from her family. Her injuries were severe, but she was alive. She had multiple fractures. Her legs were badly injured at different angles in an unnatural position. She was wounded by shrapnel and was rapidly losing blood. Still, shortly after the explosion, Safi tried to push herself up with her arms, a remarkable feat of strength and courage. But she was too badly injured. Safi remained in the City Room for 26 minutes, during which she drifted in and out of consciousness, fighting for her life. She gave her name to a member of the public who was helping her. Several people, including members of the public, arena first aiders, and police officers, tried to assist her. But what Safi needed was immediate, extensive medical care. But no paramedics arrived to provide it in those crucial minutes. And crucial treatments like tourniquets or leg splints were not applied to her injuries. At 10:56 p.m., Safi was still conscious when she was placed onto an advertising hoarding, used as a makeshift stretcher, and carried out of the arena. People struggled to flag down an ambulance, and Safi was finally taken to the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital 46 minutes after the explosion. During the ride, Safi repeatedly asked the paramedics if she was going to die. The 8-year-old arrived at the hospital at 11:17 p.m. There she went into cardiac arrest, and despite the best efforts of the medical team, Safi Rose Roussos was declared dead at 11:40 p.m. 21 other people were killed in the blast, including the attacker. More than 1,000 others were injured. 239 of the injuries were physical. The others were cases of severe psychological trauma. Safi's mother, Lisa, had been severely injured in the explosion and was unconscious for several days. When she awoke, she instinctively knew Safi was gone. Lisa and her husband Andrew were devastated by the tragedy. Andrew described the response to the bombing as shameful and believed his daughter had been let down by the failure to provide timely medical care. The attack led to widespread criticism of the emergency response, and an inquiry found that more could have been done to prevent the bombing and to care for the victims. An inquiry later suggested that there was only a remote possibility that Safi could have survived with different treatment and care. Safi Rose Roussos was the youngest victim of the attack. On December 8, 2004, rock band Damage Plan was set to perform at the Alrosa Villa nightclub in Columbus, Ohio. The band arrived at the club early that afternoon. After the sound check went without incident, Daryl Abbott, also known as Dimebag, went to thank the owner of the club. Dimebag and his brother Vinnie Paul were once the founders of a more famous band, Pantera. Damage Plan was the group they formed when they put Pantera on hold, and booking shows with this new project was a big deal for them. But unbeknownst to Dimebag and his brother, the evening would end in a horrible tragedy that would shock the world of rock. Born on August 20th, 1966, Darrell Lance Abbott, better known by his stage name Dimebag Darrell, rose to prominence as one of the most important guitarists in the heavy metal genre. He and his brother Vinnie Paul co-founded the bands Damage Plan and Pantera. Darrell was raised in a musical household, having learned to play the guitar at the age of 12 from his father, country music producer Jerry Abbott. By 16, he had already released Pantera's first album, Metal Magic, and was becoming known for his skill as a guitarist. Over time, the group's music changed to a heavier groove metal sound that helped them succeed later on. Darrell gained recognition as one of the all-time great metal guitarists, thanks to his fast, aggressive guitar playing and inventive riffs. After Pantera separated in 2003, Darrell and his brother formed Damage Plan, aiming to create new music and continue their passion for performing live. On the evening of December 8, 2004, Damage Plan took the stage after the opener set had ended. They had just started their first song of the night, and things were going seemingly great. No one could foresee or prevent what happened next. Unbeknownst to the band and the crowd, an imposing veteran, Nathan Gale, had just found a way into the building by jumping over a fence and entering through an open side door. Gale was mentally unstable and he had a mission. Within moments, the man approached the stage where Darrell was playing and opened fire. Gale fired multiple shots at Dimebag Darrell with a 9mm Beretta 92 FS semi-automatic pistol. Darrell was struck several times in the head and died instantly on stage. He was 38 years old. But the nightmare didn't end there. Upon seeing the attack, Jeffrey Mayhem Thompson, the band's head of security, attempted to stop Gale. Thompson tackled Gale but was fatally shot in the ensuing struggle. Aaron Halk, an employee at the venue, saw an opportunity to stop Gale when the attacker was reloading his weapon. But Gale was quick. He reloaded the weapon faster than anticipated, then shot and killed Halk. Meanwhile, Nathan Bray, a fan in the audience, was performing CPR on Dimebag Darrell and Jeffrey Thompson when Nathan Gale shot and killed him too. The violence didn't stop with all these deaths. Chris Paluska, the band's tour manager, was also injured in the chaos. John Cat Brooks, Damage Plan's drum technician, was shot multiple times while attempting to wrestle the gun away from Gale. In the meantime, multiple Columbus police officers arrived at the scene. Nathan Gale, the attacker, took Brooks hostage and held him at gunpoint, using his body as a human shield. As Gale focused on the officers in front of him, another officer, a man named James Niggemeyer, entered through a back door behind the stage. Niggemeyer waited for the right time. Then he shot Gale once in the head with a police-issued 12-gauge Remington 870 shotgun, killing him instantly. Gale was found to have 35 rounds of ammunition left, suggesting he was prepared for further violence. News of the tragedy spread quickly. The world of rock was shocked by Darrell Dimebag Abbott's death. Thousands of fans attended his public memorial, and many prominent musicians, including Eddie Van Halen, Zakk Wylde, Corey Taylor, and Jerry Cantrell, paid their respects. Abbott was buried alongside his mother Carolyn at Moore Memorial Garden Cemetery in Arlington, Texas. As a tribute to his influence and friendship, Eddie Van Halen donated his original black and yellow striped 1979 Charvel Bumblebee guitar to be buried with Darrell. This guitar had been featured on the back cover of Van Halen's second album, and Darrell had admired it greatly. Following a police investigation, it was discovered that the gunman, Nathan Gale, was a disturbed schizophrenic who claimed Darrell's old band, Pantera, was stealing his ideas. Gale had been discharged from the military and was known to have unpredictable behavior. He had gotten into a fight in a tattoo parlor earlier that day, which was a sign of his unstable mental state. His mother had given him the handgun used in the attack as a gift, not realizing the potential danger it posed. As a result of the tragedy, many fans and friends of Darrell, as well as the families of the other victims, continued to push for better mental health awareness and stronger measures to prevent such tragedies from occurring again. It was August 13th, 2011, and thousands of people were attending an outdoor concert at the Indiana State Fair in Indianapolis. But the atmosphere was not carefree. The sky was dark, and throughout the day, the National Weather Service had issued multiple warnings of a severe thunderstorm approaching the area. By the time the concert's organizers made the decision to cancel the event and evacuate the crowd, it was too late. Tragedy was upon them. It was obvious since early that day that the weather conditions weren't optimal. Weather alerts from the National Weather Service indicated the possibility of heavy rain, lightning, and winds over 60 miles per hour. The Indiana State Fair Commission's executive director, Cindy Hoy, was among the fair executives who received the warnings. Consequently, at around 8 p.m. that evening, a meeting was held to decide whether or not to postpone the Sugarland concert, which was set to begin at 8:45 p.m. Though there were worries about the storm that was moving in, it was decided to go forward with the event, albeit with a slight delay to 8:50 p.m. The band's management wished to go forward with the schedule and only cancel if the weather got worse. This choice was made without fully understanding the severity of the incoming weather, which included strong winds and hail. A severe thunderstorm warning predicting wind gusts over 60 miles per hour was issued at 8:39 p.m. However, important fair officials were not informed of this warning. The show went on. Opening act Sarah Bareilles completed her performance and left the stage. In the meantime, the members of Sugarland, the main act of the evening, were in a tour bus preparing to come on stage. At 8:45 p.m., a public announcement informed the audience that a storm was approaching and advised them on how to evacuate if needed, but there was no immediate directive to leave. A minute later, at 8:46 p.m., tragedy hit and mayhem ensued. A powerful blast of wind hit the stage. The temporary roof structure, which was not adequately secured, collapsed onto the crowd below. The weight of the structure, around 70,000 pounds, proved too much for the insufficient support system in place, leading to a deadly collapse. There was no time to take in the shock. Security officials and members of the public sprang into action, helping to lift the staging to free those trapped underneath. Lighting streaked the sky, and thunder rumbled. People screamed and panicked. Rescue workers worked efficiently. It took them less than 20 minutes to free those trapped. But for some of the concert-goers, it was too late. The stage collapsed, taking the lives of 7 people. 4 of the victims, Tammy Van Dam, Glenn Goodrich, Alina Big Johnny, and Christina Santiago, died at the scene, while 3 others, Nathan Bird, Jennifer Haskell, and Megan Toothman, succumbed to their injuries later in the hospital. Most of the victims were members of the public. One of them was a stagehand. Their ages ranged from 22 to 51 years old. In addition to the fatalities, 58 others were injured, some critically, as the heavy structure and debris fell onto the crowd. An investigation conducted by Thornton Tomasetti, an engineering firm, concluded that the collapse was due to the inadequate capacity of the lateral load-resisting system, which was meant to stabilize the stage. The system relied on guy lines connected to concrete barriers, but these barriers were not fixed in place. They depended solely on their weight and friction with the ground, which proved insufficient against the force of the wind. As a result, the top of the structure leaned toward the crowd, and the support columns failed under the immense pressure. Several lawsuits were filed by victims and their families against various parties, including the Indiana State Fair Commission, Sugarland, and the companies involved in setting up the stage. A $50 million settlement was reached in 2014. It was January 26, 2001 in Sydney, Australia, and Jessica Michalek was attending the Big Day Out Festival. The 16-year-old was a huge music lover, a passion she shared with her father, and she couldn't wait to check out the festival's headliner, Limp Bizkit. But Jessica never got to enjoy the concert. Instead, a lack of concert etiquette from a reckless crowd and insufficient safety measures claimed her life. The Big Day Out Festival was an annual music festival that was held in 5 Australian cities, where music lovers could enjoy rock music played by mainstream international acts and local acts alike. For 16-year-old Jessica Michalek, this was her second year attending the festival alongside her friends. Jessica was more than thrilled to return to the festival in 2001, eager to experience the energy once more. But the day turned tragic. Limp Bizkit, the headliners of the festival, took the stage after a performance by Rammstein ended at a nearby stage. As such, the crowd shifted. The new crowd was restless and angry. The energy was dark. The combination of loud music, aggressive moshing, and a surge of people created a chaotic environment. Shortly after Limp Bizkit began their set, a crowd crush began to develop at the front of the stage. Security officials attempted to control the situation, and the band was asked to stop playing to prevent further chaos. However, they kept playing and the situation deteriorated rapidly. It was then that Jessica was caught in the middle of the crowd, surrounded by surging fans. At some point, she let go of her friend's hand, and the two became separated. At about 9:30 p.m., Jessica Michalek was pulled out of the crowd unconscious, with no pulse and not breathing. She was taken to the first aid area and then transported to Concord Hospital. 5 days later, Jessica died in the hospital. The coroner later determined that she had been crushed to death by the crowd. In addition to criticizing the current crowd management strategies in place at the time, the Coroner's Court of New South Wales also criticized Fred Durst, the lead singer of Limp Bizkit, for his alarming and inflammatory remarks made during the rescue operation. Limp Bizkit experienced severe backlash, and both they and their fans were profoundly impacted by the event. After canceling their remaining Big Day Out shows, the band flew back to the U.S. In response to the tragedy, the festival organizers put in place a number of new safety precautions to make sure nothing similar would happen again. Among these was the installation of a D-barrier system, which was intended to ease pressure by dividing the mosh pit from the remainder of the crowd. In addition, they added more water stations, improved video monitoring, and recruited more volunteers to help with crowd care. These modifications established new guidelines for security at music festivals around the nation. George and Barbara Michalik, Jessica's parents, pushed for these safety measures so that no other family would have to suffer such a loss. Even though they were devastated by Jessica's death, they didn't want it to mean the end of the Big Day Out festival. In the years that followed, the music community, which included bands like Grinspoon, paid homage to Jessica's legacy, honoring her spirit and the heartbreaking lesson that her death taught us. It was December 6, 1969, and the Rolling Stones were playing at the Altamont Speedway Free Festival. 18-year-old Meredith Hunter, a lively and confident young man who loved music, was attending the concert, excited to see the band. The event, which was supposed to mirror the peace and love of Woodstock, instead became a symbol of violence, poor planning, and the deadly consequences of bad decisions. And Meredith Hunter found himself at the center of a tragedy. Altamont Speedway was a hastily chosen venue for a free concert organized by the Rolling Stones as a way to thank their fans after complaints about high ticket prices during their 1969 U.S. tour. The venue was secured only 2 days before the concert, leaving little time for proper preparation, especially when it came to security. The management of the band paid the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club $500 worth of beer in exchange for their handling of security. The Hells Angels, who were notorious for their violent behavior and rough demeanor, were entrusted with keeping the audience back from the stage. The combination of a low stage, a massive crowd of around 300,000 people, bad drugs, and severely intoxicated Hells Angels made for a very bad situation. As the day went on, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense and hostile. Fights broke out, and the Angels, armed with pool cues and motorcycle chains, aggressively beat back anyone who got too close to the stage. The concert took a darker turn when the Angels assaulted some of the performers who opened for the Rolling Stones. By the time the Rolling Stones took the stage after sundown, the crowd was on edge, and violence was simmering. Amid the chaos, Meredith Hunter tried to get closer to the stage by climbing onto a speaker. A member of the Hells Angels grabbed Meredith's head, punched him, and chased him back into the crowd. He left the venue and went to his car to retrieve a handgun. But Meredith wasn't rational, and as described by witnesses, he was high. The young man was determined to approach the stage again. This time he pulled out a revolver from the inside of his lime green jacket. In a swift and brutal response, Hells Angel Alan Passaro pulled out a knife and lunged at Meredith, stabbing him multiple times. Meredith Hunter collapsed and died from his wounds, his lifeless body stomped on by Angels as the crowd watched in shock. Mick Jagger, the frontman of the Rolling Stones, called for a doctor. The band wasn't aware at that moment that Meredith Hunter had been killed. Altamont claimed the lives of 4 people, including Meredith Hunter. 2 were killed in a hit-and-run accident and 1 drowned while under the influence of LSD. The chaos, violence, and senseless death at Altamont are part of rock's turbulent history.